Hi Year 11, what I'm going to have a go at doing today is a full run through of an example practical that you might do for your Unit 2 assessment. The one that I'm going to do is I'm going to do shepherd's pie with an accompaniment of green vegetables and also cauliflower cheese and a pea and mint gel, so that you can do a little bit of sort of presentation and plating up. I'm not sure how it'll go, but what I will do is when I'm going through everything, I'll sort of talk to you a little bit about quality checks, safety points, and things that you might want to put into a time plan. Obviously things might go wrong in this, and if they do go wrong, then that would be something that you'd possibly put into your contingency so that you have got a bit of a backup just in case something does go wrong. So I'll get started. So I'm going to start off doing the pea and mint gel. The reason that I'm going to do that to start off with is because it needs a bit of time to set. So when you're doing your time plans and planning out what you're going to do, anything that needs to set, so for example, if you're making a cheesecake with gelatin in, or you are doing some kind of gel for presentation purposes, then that would be something that you do first, along with any doughs that you're doing. So if you're doing pasta or pastry or bread, those would be the first things you do on your time plan as well, because they need time to rest and chill, etc. Remember that your first half an hour of the practical is your mise en place. I've already done all of my mise en place, so I'm just going to talk you through it quickly. So on this side here, I have got my ingredients, and I've weighed out anything that I need. So for example, for the cauliflower cheese, I need 25 grams of margarine, 25 grams of flour and half a pint of milk. So I've got those already measured out. You can have peeled things also. So I've peeled my carrot, I've peeled my potatoes. I've got my cheese and my meat in the fridge at the moment, because obviously they're high risk foods and therefore they need to remain refrigerated until I need them. I've also got my potatoes in there as well because I've already peeled them, and if exposed to the atmosphere for too long, they'll start to go brown. So again, those would be things that you could put into your contingency section, or your quality check section of your time plan, to make sure that it demonstrates you've thought about making sure that the product is safe to eat but also is going to be of the highest quality. So like I said, the first thing that I'm going to do is the pea and mint gel. So I need just to cook some peas to start off with, that I'm then going to make into a bit of a puree. So it might be that actually you don't do a gel, but you do some kind of puree. And if you're doing some kind of puree, then you'd be doing exactly the same thing as this. So I've got my peas already weighed out, like you can see. So again, even things like that are weighed out and prepared, etc. Just going to put some boiling water in, and then I'm going to boil these for about 3 or 4 minutes until they've softened. So I'll just get my boiling water, cover them over, and get those cooking. All right, so that's the first thing that I can be doing, and I can get those on, ready to start cook. Okay, obviously if at school we haven't got lids etc for pans, but if you had got lids for pans, or if you can use some foil, it'll reduce the cooking time a little bit, but it'll also save energy, and they'll be the, even if you don't do it, those would be the kind of things that you'd also need to put onto your time plan, because it's thought about environmental considerations and using your time effectively and those kind of things. While that's boiling, the next thing that I need to do is I need to soak my gelatin in preparation for when this all goes together. So I've got some leaf gelatin, and this would be what you'd use if you were doing a cheesecake or something like that. And it comes in sheets, and you just have to soften it with a little bit of cold water. So you can't see it on video very well, but if I give it a waft, you'll be able to see it catching the light. So to make sure my gel sets really, really well, I'm going to put 2 sheets in, just to be on the safe side, because like I said, the gel that I'm going to produce is going to be more for presentation than eating, so I just want to make sure it sets well. And all you then do with this is you put a little bit of cold water in it so it soaks. So I'll just put a little bit of cold water in, and then you can just let it soak a little bit. Alright, so just put it in to the bowl with some water over it, and it'll soften it in preparation for me to be able to do the next little bit. So just turn the peas up a little bit, and then that's that first little bit done. Obviously at this stage you might think, oh, I could stand about a little bit. While I'm waiting for that to be done, what I'm going to be getting on with is I'm going to be getting on with the base for the shepherd's pie. So I need to do a little bit of chopping at this stage. So I'm going to do the carrot, the celery, and also the onion. But I put the onion in the fridge because I didn't want it to be smelling, so I'll just get an onion. Right, so here we go. Right, so I'm just going to cut these into really fine pieces. And again, on your time plan, in your quality checks, you need to be saying how you want to have chopped the vegetables and why. So I want to chop mine into really fine dices because I want it to cook really quickly, but also for you not to be able to see a great deal of the vegetables. So again, you need to be demonstrating good chopping skills, so using the bridge and the claw, chopping board, etc. So I'm just going to chop my onion into fine dices so that I know it's going to cook quickly. So that's the first thing. And then again, I'm using the claw grip to make sure that I'm nice and safe. And then I can twist this on its side slightly just to get my last little bits of onion. Okay, so I've prepared the onion. I'm going to pop that to one side on my chopping board, and again I'm thinking about keeping my area tidy, so just to one side I've got a plate where I'm going to put all of my rubbish onto, so that I can keep everything as tidy as possible. Alright, so next thing that I'm going to prepare is the carrot. So for this I want it into fine dices, so I've cut it in half and then I'm cutting it into sort of batons, and then once those batons are done I'm then going to finely dice them. So again, keeping my fingers out of the way so that I've got some nice fine diced pieces. Right, so put that to one side and then do my next lot, and then I've got my celery to do. What you might also want to do is pop in a little bit of garlic in here. If you do, you can use a garlic crusher to crush a little bit of garlic in. From the quantities, I'm using a very small amount because you only need to do one portion. And actually, if you're doing too much, what you're going to end up with is spending far too long chopping and cooking and those kind of things, when actually you don't need those. So I've used round about 120 grams of mince, and then I've used half an onion, and I've used half a carrot and half a celery stick. So you don't need masses and masses of stuff, because like I said, if you do, then you are going to end up it taking you a lot longer. On your production plan, you are best putting your ingredients and your quantities at the top, and then also the equipment that you need so that you can check it off. Again, as you can see to this side, as part of my mise en place, I'd set up and got out all of the equipment that I need, just to make sure that I'm not having to go from one place to another. Alright, so got those vegetables prepared, and at this stage my peas are boiling nicely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain those, and then I'm just going to pulse them and pass them through a sieve so that I've got a nice fine puree to be able to then work with to be able to make this gel. Okay, so I've got my colander out ready, just going to pop it into the sink. Again, when you're doing your production plan, you could talk about safety considerations with using boiling water, so putting the colander into the sink and then pouring it in rather than holding on to the colander, because you're likely to burn yourself if you're doing that. Okay, so I'll just turn that off and then take that over and drain my peas out. I've just popped my peas back into the pan so that it's safe for me to be able to carry it back over, and I'm not going to be dripping water anywhere, etc. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my little blender to mush these up to make them into a little bit of a puree. Okay, so I've only got a little mini blender here, but we've got some mini blenders, but we've also got some bigger blenders at school as well, so you can use whichever. I'm just going to pop my peas in and give them a bit of a mush up. Get those in. We'll see whether this works or not. Might be too many peas for the processor. We'll have a look. And then we'll give them a mush up. And once we've mushed them up a little bit, I'll put a little bit of water into them. I'm just going to press that just to make sure. Like so you can see. So it's produced a little bit of a puree so far. What we don't want is it to have lots and lots of lumps in it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to pass it through a sieve so that it makes it a little bit less sort of chunky. But before I do that, I'm going to add a little bit of water into it just to get it to be a little bit looser in consistency. So I'm going to add a little bit of warm water in and then give it another blitz. All right? So that's going in. And then another little blitz, and then I'll pass it through my sieve. Right, so that'll do. Already, by making this, we have used the method of cooking that is boiling. So that's one method of cooking demonstrated already. Again, you'd be talking about safety considerations because you've got a blade on this processor, so you need to make sure that that's out of the way and safe, etc. So I'm just going to pop that out of the way so that I can then wash it a little bit later on. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to pass the puree back through the sieve into the pan that I used originally. And I've got my spoon out ready, so I've not got to be rifling through the drawers to find it. So that could go in. So like I said, if you were doing, say for example, fish and chips or anything like this, you could just do a pea puree and you could put some mint into it so that that could form part of your product rather than you making it into a gel. But I'm just going to show you it being made into a gel just in case anybody does want to do it. It is a little bit more of a faffing about job, but it's just giving you another idea. So I'm just passing this through the sieve so that it's a lot smoother in consistency. And then I'm going to cut up a little bit of mint and pop that into it. What you've got to try to make sure is when you're doing your production plan, as well as saying what you're doing and how you're dovetailing things and how you're using your time effectively, you've got to also make sure that you're putting time in for washing up. You might not get all of your washing up done during the actual practical. You have got some time at the end to be able to do that. But for your production plan and for your time plan, you've got to try to make sure that you are not just leaving it all till the end. You're doing some during the practical. Right, so a lot of the pea has come through the sieve now. I'll just put a bit more through. And then I'll get rid of this. And then we'll move on to the next little bit. Obviously I'm trying to do this as fast as I can so that you're not watching this video forever. Obviously you've got your mise en place time plus your 3 hours practical, alright? So you've got plenty of time to get things done. I just don't want a 3-hour video. Right, so we've got enough pea mixture through there now. I'll show you it in the pan once I've just scraped it off the bottom. I'm going to pop this out of the way and then show you. So we've got, you can see, plenty of like pea puree that's in the bottom of the pan. What I'm also going to do now is I'm going to pop some mint in here and then put my gelatin in and put it in to set. Alright, so got some fresh mint that I'm just going to do a quick chop of and then pop that all in I'm just taking it off the stalks because the stalks are quite sort of woody. I don't want them in it, I only want the mint leaves in it, but you could use a mint jelly or you could use some ready done mint sauce for this if you wanted to. It wouldn't have to be fresh mint, but actually fresh mint's the easier one to get hold of. Alright, so I've done that. Again, I'll keep my area as tidy as I can and then get these chopped up. So what I'm doing to chop them finely is I'm gathering them up and then I can just chop it into smaller pieces, regather it up and then chop it again. So you gather it up and then sort of cut it into ribbons so that you're getting as smaller pieces as you possibly can. And I'll do one more and then I'm going to pop that into the pan. Okay, so I'm going to pop this into here, so I'll just get it up on my knife, pop it in, so that can be all stirred in. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the gelatin, so I'll show you what it looks like now. Okay, so we've got the gelatin that's sort of all dissolved, so you can see it here. Right, it's gone all soft, right? Because this is still hot, that can go in and it'll dissolve in there now. So I'm just going to stir it all in and then I'm going to pop it into a container to put into the fridge to be able to then start to set. What you'll do in school is you'll put it into the blast chiller because it'll take a lot less time in order for it to set. Okay, so that's all dissolved in now, you can't see any of it. So I've got a plastic container that I'm going to pop into the fridge. Okay, I'm going to move that out of the way and then get my plastic container to pop it into the fridge. So you can see I've got my pea and mint puree stroke gel that's going to then set. Okay, so I'm going to stack this up against the side of the sink. I will do a little bit of washing up in a while to be able to sort of use these again. I'll just pop it on there and then I'm going to pop this into the fridge in order for it to start to cool a little bit. Actually, I might put it in the freezer just so it's done a little bit faster. That's it, so that's going in there. And make sure I'm trying to keep as tidy as possible. So I've got the base ingredients to start my basting shepherd's pie now. So I'm going to use the frying pan to do this. So I'm going to pop it onto the front ring and I'm going to put a little bit of oil into the pan. And I can start frying these off. As I'm frying these off, I can then also be getting my potatoes on to boil as well. Okay, so I'll pop these into the pan first, and like I said, you might have a little bit of garlic, etc. in there. I don't want this on too high a heat, so I'm just going to put it on to simmer to start off with and keep an eye on it while I'm doing sort of the next lot of stuff. So I'm going to get my potatoes out of the fridge now so that they're not going brown in preparation to boil them. Okay, so just going to give my knife a little bit of a wipe down and my chopping board to keep my area again as tidy as I possibly can. And I'm going to be chopping up the potatoes. So one of the things that you've got to do as part of sort of your practical is demonstrate that you have looked at the quality of ingredients. So you can see the sweet potato that I've got has got some black bits in it. What you would have to be seen to be doing is either rejecting this or, like I'm doing, trimming off any of the bad bits of it. Okay, so it's just making sure that you're demonstrating that you understand it's important to look at quality. Because I want my potatoes to cook quite quickly, but I don't want them to go mushy and starchy. I'm just chopping them into sort of a couple of centimetre cubes. So I've got here sweet potato and I've got normal potato. And you can see I've already peeled the potato just to make sure that it's a little bit quicker, and I managed to do that as part of my mise en place time. So as part of my weighing out and getting the ingredients out, and if I've got to preheat my oven, that kind of stuff. You can also do peeling. So I'd already peeled my carrot and I've also peeled my potatoes. so I can now pop these on here to start cooking. So I've just boiled the kettle, I'm putting my potatoes in, and they'll take between 10 and 12 minutes for those potatoes to cook. So I'll get the water over the top of them. Like I said, I've put pre-boiled water in there. What you could do is you could put your pan on to start boiling the water, or like I've done, you can boil your kettle. So I'm going to get that up to a high enough temperature to start boiling. And again, if you've got a lid or if you've got some foil, then it's easier to do that. And go. Let me see if we can just get logged in again, because it logs me out and I never know whether I'm still recording or not. We're here, that's okay. So that's on and ready to go, and then I'm just getting this going now, so now I can keep an eye on it. I'm just going to sweat these off and cook them down. Once those are sweated, I can then get my mince in there. So this is the stage that I can get my mince out of the fridge, and so that I'm going to be using it. So again, only a small amount of mince needed, but I've got it all wrapped up. It's been refrigerated so that I know that we're going to be nice and safe in terms of hygiene, etc. So I'm just going to put that out of the way. So you can hear that my vegetables are starting to sort of sizzle a little bit now. So I need to make sure that they're only softening and they're not going too brown. So again, that'd be something that I'd be putting in my contingencies and my quality checks. I'd be talking about what colour I want the onions to go. I want them to be translucent, see-through, but not, like I said, caramelising too much. So that's the sort of next stage of this process, while still keeping an eye on my potatoes. Once this is all cooking, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to make the white sauce in preparation for my cauliflower cheese. Alright, so we've got a few things going off now. We've already got our pea and mint gel in the freezer. We've got my potatoes on, and I'm softening the vegetables that are going into the shepherd's pie. Alright, so lots and lots of different things going on, but you can see at this stage, once this has started to soften a little bit, I'd have a little bit of a lull in my preparation time. So that would be the stage that I'd go and do a little bit of washing up. So ideally, on your time plan, you want to be putting a little bit of clearing up and a little bit of washing up in your time plan every sort of 20 minutes. Right? That's what the examiner and moderator are going to be looking for, that you have factored in constantly clearing up and tidying down, etc. Right? So this is nicely softening now. If it does start to stick at this stage, add a little bit of water into it and it'll just help it to cook down a little bit more. Okay? Right, so you can hear that my potatoes are boiling rapidly now, so I'm just going to turn them down a little bit, just so they're not going to boil over. What I've also done is I've made sure my pan handles are out to the side. So again, those would be the kind of things that you'd be putting into your time plan. Yes, they are things that we would do automatically, but they have to be in the time plan so that the moderator can see that you have explicitly thought about and written down all of those things. But actually, it's also good practice, because actually when you're doing your exam, you do forget about things. And if you've not, if you've planned it out and you've thought it through really methodically, then you're less likely to forget about it. Right? So you can see at this stage that what's happened is in my pan I've got softened carrot and onion and celery that I can then start to add the mince into. So I'm just going to add my mince in at this stage so that I can get it to brown off. And the packaging that the mince has been in, I'm going to pop it straight into the bin out of the way, just so that we again are being as hygienic and safe as we possibly can be. Alright, so I've got that going in now, and I need to break up the mince so that it can cook evenly and that all of the other vegetables are able to sort of be incorporated within it. So I'm just mushing it down and breaking it up so that it can cook as evenly as possible. When you're checking your potatoes, what you're looking for is, you're looking for your knife to easily go through the potato. There shouldn't be any sort of resistance as the knife goes through it. If there is, then your potato's not going to mash very well. Alright, so you've just got to make sure that it's soft enough to be able to go through. In your time plan, what you also need to make sure is that sort of everything's being done at the same time so that you can serve it all at the same temperature. In the actual exam, don't worry about that. If things have been left and are cold by the time you've served it all, don't worry too much, all right? But for your time plan, work it out so everything's sort of being served at the same time. And if it's not, what you would need to do is, in your time plan, put that this product is going to be held at a temperature of over sort of 62 to 65, so it's in that hot holding temperature, so that you're not going to be getting any food poisoning. So for example, if I'd prepared my shepherd's pie before my cauliflower cheese was done or anything like that, I would say that I would have it held at 65 degrees until everything else was sorted, so that it was all served hot. Right, so you can see most of my meat, or I can see most of my meat has been cooked now. What I'm looking for is to make sure there's no bits of pink in there, because if there is, then the meat hasn't been thoroughly cooked yet. So again, that would be something that you'd be talking about. Because I'm using mincemeat, using a temperature probe to take the temperature of the product isn't really suitable. If, however, I was cooking a piece of chicken or I was doing a burger or something like that, then what I'd be putting into my time plan is that I would be using a temperature probe to check the core temperature of the product to make sure it's reached 72 degrees so that the product is safe to eat. Alright, so at this stage, all of the meat is cooked. Right, so it's all nice and browned. So I can now move on to the next stage, which is adding my sort of flavouring in. So I'm going to add in a tablespoon of tomato puree. That's going in. I'm going to add in a stock cube, so a beef stock cube is going to go in. And then some seasoning, so some mixed herb and some black pepper, etc. What I'm not going to put in is any more salt at this stage, because the stock cube has already got some salt in it. So just put those in. Like that. And then get those stirred in. I'm also going to add in a little bit of water just to dissolve the stock cubes slightly. Alright, so got my boiling water again, so that's going to go in just to dissolve my stock cube. I don't want too much water in because I want this to be quite a thick mixture and I want it to be left to sort of reduce down and thicken next. Okay, so I'm just going to stir all that in. And then I'm going to put it on a low heat so that it can start to cook down and thicken. Okay? So we've got all that mixed in at that stage. If I wanted to, I could put a little bit of sort of fresh rosemary, a little bit of fresh thyme in there as well, just to add in a little bit of... Not quite sure where that one finished, so I'm just going to quickly tell you what I've just done. So what I've just done in here is I've just added in a tablespoon of tomato puree, I've added in a stock cube, I've added in a little bit of water, and I've added in some seasoning, so some herbs and some pepper, etc. And all I'm doing is I've got that on a really low heat now, cooking down while I just check the potatoes. So the next job is just going to be for me to check to see whether the potatoes have softened or not. Okay, so just looking to see that they're not resisting the knife going through them. So they just need literally another 2 minutes, and then I will drain those off, and I can get those mashed, and I can get my mini shepherd's pie sort of sorted. When you're assembling your shepherd's pie, you've got 2 ways in which you can do it. So you could either use a chef's ring and build it up that way, so I'd put the mince part onto the plate, and then I would pipe onto it, or you might want to use a little dish of some sort. I'm going to use a little dish of some sort, because what I'm doing is I'm saying that I've prepared this and then I'm going to put it into hot holding, so it being in a dish is a little bit easier for me to be able to do that. Okay, so dish, I can put the shepherd's pie base into in a minute. And then I can be mashing my potatoes. So actually, the potatoes are okay to start draining now, so I'm going to turn that heat off. Again, I'm going to take it over to the sink to drain this. And then pop it back into the pan to touch it back over. So that's that. And I pop it on here just so that I can start mashing it. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transfer this into the bottom of my pie dish. Okay, so I'm just going to put this into the bottom so that it's easy for me to be able to, like I said, store so that it's safe. So you can see the amount that I produced from me sort of 120 grams of mince is plenty for one portion. You don't need to be doing lots and lots. Okay, so I've got loads in there. And then again, I can pop that out of the way to be able to wash it. And then start mashing my potatoes. So I'm going to start off by giving them a mash, and then I'm going to add a little bit of butter into them. You might want to use a potato ricer for this, because you'll end up with a smoother mixture, but I'm just going to do it with the masher because I haven't got a ricer at home. So again, I've put my hot pan onto my chopping board. In school we've got the wooden triangle, so again you'd be putting that information into your quality and safety checks to make sure that you are doing everything as safely and as hygienically as possible. So I have got my potato mashed. I'm just going to add in a tiny bit of margarine or butter just to add a little bit of flavour in, and then season it up a little bit. So again, a little bit of salt and pepper in there, just to add that. There we go. And then mash that in. And get what I'm then going to do is, for the first of my presentation techniques, is I'm going to pipe my mashed potato on. Okay? So that's why you've got to make sure that your potato is nice and smooth. I've got my piping bag and nozzle. I'm going to pop the nozzle in, and then I'm going to fill my piping bag with my potato. Hopefully I've mushed it good enough to be able to get it through the nozzle, which is why I said sometimes it is better if you sort of do it with a potato ricer. Again, what you might also want to do is add a little bit of time in to let your potato cool slightly, because then it'll be easier for you to pipe it, it won't hurt your hands. Okay, so I've got mine in there. What I'm now going to do is I'm just going to trim off the edge so that I've got enough space for my nozzle to come down and for me to be able to pipe. So actually, It's John's a good one. I have managed to mush it enough to be able to pipe around here. So I've got my little shepherd's pie with my sweet potato mash on it, and again I used one potato that was a normal potato, one potato that was a sweet potato, and I've got plenty there, so you can see I've packed that on, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of cheese on there, and that's going to go into the oven. Okay, so I'm going to pop that into my oven, which I had preheated at 180, so that can then just be cooking nicely. So that's the first little bit of the recipe done. The next little bit of the recipe, like I said, is going to be the white sauce in preparation for the cauliflower. So at this stage, what I'm going to do is a little bit of washing up, okay? So you'd have done all of those things, and then you might be factoring in a little bit of washing up. So we'll pretend I've done a bit of washing up, and we'll move on to the next stage. All right, so I'm just going to get my next pan out ready to be able to cook do my cauliflower and my white sauce. Okay, so getting my next pan ready to do the cauliflower and the white sauce. So I've got my pan on, and I'm going to be putting my cauliflower in there in a minute. So again, I have only got a really small amount of cauliflower. Right, I've not got loads and loads because I don't need loads. I'm just going to be doing a portion for the accompaniment. So I'm just going to chop this into little florets. Again, I'm going to be putting a little bit of boiling water in there just to cook it. So I've got those in. Again, I'm using more than I actually need really. And then a little bit of boiling water in. I don't want too much water in here because I don't want this to lose all of its nutrients. So again, lid on, onto the back ring. Remember, you have got the use of a full oven and a full hob so that you're able to use your cooker to whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, so I'm just popping that on there, and then I am going to be making the white sauce. So I'm going to do that on my little pan with my little pan. And I've already got my flour and my margarine sorted, so I'm going to pop those in. So I've actually got 12.5 grams of flour, 12.5 grams of margarine, and 1/4 of a pint of milk, because I don't want to make a lot of it. If, however, you want to bake a little bit more, it's 25 grams of flour, and it's plain flour, 25 grams of margarine, and then 1/2 pint of milk. So again, I'm just going to pop these out of the way because I don't need them anymore. And then I'm going to start making the roux part of the sauce. So the roux is where you are cooking and melting together the margarine and the flour to create a paste, and then you're going to gradually add in the liquid. So I'm using my whisk to make sure that when I do start to add in the milk, I've got a nice smooth mixture. Alright, so popping this in and just starting to let it melt slightly. Alright, so at the same time, I'm just going to be keeping an eye on the cauliflower, because like I said, it doesn't take long for the cauliflower to cook. We don't want it to lose all of its nutrients. Once I've done this, what I will do is I'll have a quick look at the pea and mint gel and see how that's going on. And then the final bit will be to just cook some green vegetables so that I can use those to help serve the product as well. Right, so this is all melting down nicely and creating that paste, which I'll show you. Right, so we've got that all melted into a paste. So what I've got to do now is gradually add in the liquid. Right, so I don't want to do it on too high a heat because I don't want this to cook out too much. So I'm just adding a little bit of milk at a time and stirring it. bit more milk at a time and stirring it because we want a nice smooth mixture. We don't want any lumps in our sauce. So once I've started to get a bit of milk in there, I can turn it up slightly so I've got a little bit more heat. Once it starts to thicken again, I'm then going to add in a little bit extra liquid. And this is the same sauce that you would make if you were doing a lasagna or anything like that. And so get this thickening now. And then I'll add my cheese in, but I'm not going to add the cheese on the heat, I'm going to take it off the heat. So I'm just going to check this again. It logged me out again. It's a blooming nuisance. Right, we're still there. Right, so we're just waiting for this to boil now so that we know that it's thickened enough. And then I'll add in the cheese and the seasonings, etc. And at that stage, my cauliflower will be ready to drain, and I can pop that in the container to be able to put into the oven as well, just so that that's browning off a little bit. So that's thickening nicely now, not quite boiling. I'm going to turn the cauliflower off now because that one's cooked enough. Got a nice smooth thick sauce now that's just starting to boil. So I'll show you the nice sauce and then I'll add in the cheese. So I've got a nice smooth white sauce that I'm going to add the cheese into, and I'm going to save a little bit of cheese for the top as well. So I'm adding a bit of cheese in at this stage, which I can whisk in. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of black pepper and a little bit of nutmeg, because that actually brings out the flavour of the cheese. So I've got that all whisked in, nice smooth sauce, a little bit of black pepper and a little bit of nutmeg. So I'll just put sort of half a teaspoon of that in, and then we're ready to go. So I'll give that a good stir, and then I'm going to drain the cauliflower cheese next. Well, the cauliflower in preparation for the cheese part of it. So again, got my colander in the sink. I'm going to drain that and then fetch it back so that you can see what I've done. Just put it back into my pan so that I can fetch it back to the front, and then put it on it so it's easier. Right, I'll just pop these on here a second. The container that again I'm going to put my cauliflower cheese in is just a little dish. So again, I don't want loads and loads. In fact, I might be able to just do it. So I've got my draining spoon. I'm just going to be putting some of the cauliflower florets into a little container. Like that. Got that. So again, I did absolutely plenty for the proportion that I want. So loads of cauliflower in there, and then I'm going to pop that ready for washing again and pour my cheese sauce over that. Okay, so I've got a nice creamy smooth cheese sauce that's going over there, and I'll put a little bit of grated cheese on top so that it'll just brown off, and again that can now go into the oven while I'm doing the next little bit. Alright, so that's going into the oven now. Again, when you're using the oven, make sure that you're using oven gloves, or you're saying that you're using oven gloves. Right, so they're both in the oven now, and then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to check on my pea and mint gel to see how that's going, and that looks like it's setting quite well. We'll have a quick look at it. If I can get the lid off. Yeah, setting quite well. So you know, you can see there's just a little bit left to set. So I'll pop that back in a second while I do the last bit, and then we can do all of our plating up. So that's in there. The last thing that I'm going to do again, I'm just going to put a little bit of boiling water into my kettle to boil it. So I'm going to do a couple more vegetables that we can serve with this. So a few green vegetables that are going to be seasonal vegetables. So I've got my pan, and I've now got some long stem broccoli and some asparagus, because asparagus at the minute is seasonal. And again, that's something that's important that you think about using seasonal vegetables, because it does say on your brief that it's got to be something that is considering the environment. So I'm going to cook those two together just quickly again, just a couple of minutes. If I wanted to, I could steam those rather than boil them, so that I've got a different method of cooking, because we've got oven baking in there, we've got boiling and simmering. But you could steam them, and if you were steaming them, you wouldn't have to use a steamer. All you can do is, with a frying pan, heat up your frying pan without anything in it to start off with, put your vegetables in, and then add a little bit of water in, cover it over with your foil, and it'll steam it for a couple of minutes. So I would actually do that, because that would then give you another method of cooking rather than boiling and simmering again, because you've done boiling and simmering already as part of you doing your potatoes. So for this, at the moment, the methods of cooking that you've used are boiling, simmering, frying, and then you've used baking because you've got it in the oven as well. But like I said, I would also use steaming rather than boiling again for this. All right, but I'm just going to boil them. So I'll just pop a little bit of water in and literally let them cook for a couple of minutes. So pop these on, and they'll take a few minutes to do that. What I don't want to do is overcook these, because I want them to still be nice and green, so that we've got a lot of different or some different colours on there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clear my side down so that I can then start to look at how we are going to present and plate this up a little bit. So just clearing my side and then getting what I'm using to present it. So I've got my slate, and I'll get my gel out in a minute, but we're pretty much sort of done now in terms of everything being prepared, and we've made a mini shepherd's pie, we've done a cauliflower cheese, we've done a pea and mint gel, and we've also done some seasonal vegetables to serve alongside it. And I think it's probably taken me sort of 45 minutes, 50 minutes, something like that. Obviously that doesn't include the mise en place time, it doesn't include the washing up, etc. I've not put that in during the video. There'd have been sort of 10 minutes at different stages where I'd have been doing a little bit of washing up if I'd not been filming this. So that needs to go into your time plan as well. Okay, so I'm going to get out the gel in a minute, but these are cooked now, so I'm just going to turn them off. And I am going to drain them in the colander again so that I can fetch them back ready for plating up. So in terms of everything being at the right temperature, for this we've got everything exactly at the right temperature, because we've had the cauliflower cheese and the shepherd's pie being held at the right temperature, and then we've just cooked these in preparation for everything sort of being served together. So I'm just going to get these out of the oven now so that we can get it all plated up and I can show you. To be honest with you, I'd leave these in just a little bit longer to add a little bit of sort of more colour to them, but I don't want to be stood here waiting forever. So I've got the little shepherd's pie, I've got my little pot of cauliflower cheese, and I'm going to put some of my green vegetables onto the plate. So I've got my asparagus that I'm going to pop on, and I'm just going to layer them up a little bit. That I'm just going to get hold of them. And then I've also got, like I said, the broccoli stems that I'm going to pop on. I'm just going to add a bit of height up for it, so that you've got your variety of different things on there. So I've got those on there, and then the final thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pea and mint gel out and see if I can get a couple of cubes of this to be able to present around the plate as well. So all I'm doing, let me just get that out. I've got a little bit of the gel, which you can see, and then I'm just going to cut it into cubes so that I can lay it around the plate a little bit. Right, so I'm just going to try and just lay it around the plate a little bit. Obviously you lot might be better at presentation than me. I'm not amazing at presentation. It's not sort of my forte, but it's just giving you a few ideas about how you could present this so that it was just that little bit different. Okay, so I'm just going to move those out of the way. Again, I'll click on so that you can see me, or so that I can check that it's still recording. Where's it gone? 2, 3, 4. Here we are. Okay, so I'll show you what it looks like. I know it's a bit hard to tip it up. What I'll do is I'll move it towards the camera, and then I'll tip the camera down a little bit so that you can see it. Right, so you can see from that side. I'll show you from this side. Show you there. So we've got just the pea and mint gel, the vegetables, your cauliflower cheese, and also your shepherd's pie. I'll take a photograph so that you can see it as well, so it's on a still and it's a little bit easier for you to be able to see it. Okay, so that's that. Hopefully that will help you when you're doing your time plan, so that you can see sort of how long things take you. Okay, thank you for that, guys.